There is a quiet power in knowing who you are. There is a strength that does not shout, but stands steady in the storm. Self-love is that strength. It is the whisper in the morning when you rise and look at your reflection, and though the world has tried to tell you otherwise, you say, I am worthy. I am enough. Self-love is not loud. It does not compete. It does not seek to prove. It does not crush others to stand tall. Self-love simply knows, and in knowing it liberates. Ego, on the other hand, is restless. It is hungry for applause, for recognition, for control. Ego is the mask we wear when we fear being unseen. It seeks validation like a beggar seeking coins, believing its worth is measured by how many eyes are watching, how many voices are clapping, how many heads are nodding. Ego is not the soul speaking, ego is the wound speaking. And when the wound speaks, it often drowns out the truth. Self-love does not say, I am better than you. Self-love says, I am not in competition with you. Ego wants the crown, the throne, the title. Self-love wants the freedom to walk unburdened, unchained by comparison. Ego compares endlessly, fearing it will vanish if it is not first, not the brightest, not the most adored. But self-love knows that even the smallest star shines in the darkness, and it does not need to outshine the sun to prove its light is real. The difference between self-love and ego is in the way they treat others. Ego pushes others down so it can climb higher. It thrives on superiority, and when it cannot be superior, it feels small, it feels threatened, it feels empty. Self-love, though, sees others as reflections of the same divine spark. It celebrates another's success because it knows that light does not diminish light. One flame can ignite another, and together they can set the world ablaze. Self-love is not arrogance. Arrogance says, I am more. Self-love says, I am enough. Self-love holds your hand gently, reminding you to rest, to nourish, to honor your body and your soul. Ego drives you past exhaustion, insisting you must prove your worth over and over again. Ego will keep you running on empty because it never believes you are full. Self-love instead fills the cup from within, so that what spills over can be shared in generosity, not desperation. There is a softness in self-love, but do not mistake it for weakness. It takes courage to love yourself in a world that profits from your doubt. It takes strength to affirm your worth when voices rise against you. Self-love is the courage to say, I belong here. I am whole as I am. Ego, however, shouts because it fears silence. It controls because it fears letting go. It demands because it fears being denied. Self-love does not demand. It simply claims its rightful place with dignity and grace. You will know you are walking in self-love when peace follows you. When you can celebrate your achievements without needing the world to bow. When you can stand tall without making others feel small. When you can forgive because you are no longer protecting a fragile image of yourself. Ego cannot forgive, for forgiveness feels like surrender to it. But self-love forgives because it has nothing to lose and everything to gain. Ego thrives on masks. It hides insecurity under pride, fear under control, emptiness under excess. But self-love does not wear a mask. It stands in the light barefaced, saying, this is who I am. With flaws, with scars, with imperfections, and yet with beauty, with wisdom, with strength. Ego denies its wounds while self-love tends to them, heals them, transforms them. When you love yourself truly, you walk differently. Your steps are not hurried, chasing approval, but grounded, secure in your worth. Your voice carries differently, not sharp to dominate, but steady to resonate. Your presence is felt not because you demand attention, but because your authenticity cannot be ignored. Ego may impress, but self-love inspires. Ego may draw crowds, but self-love touches souls. And when the world tempts you to confuse the two, when applause feels like proof and silence feels like rejection, return to yourself. Ask, am I doing this to prove I exist, or because I already know I exist? That is the line between ego and self-love. Ego screams to be seen, self-love rests, knowing it is seen by the only eyes that matter, your own. The world often confuses the voice of ego with the voice of love. It teaches us to chase status, to wear achievements like medals pinned upon our skin, to count followers as if numbers could measure our value. It rewards performance over presence, appearance over authenticity, noise over stillness. And so many begin to believe that ego is strength, that arrogance is confidence, that domination is proof of worth. But when the applause fades, when the lights dim, when the crowd disperses, ego crumbles. Ego is hollow without witnesses. Self-love, however, remains. Self-love is the friend who stays when the party is over, when the masks are set aside, when the silence grows thick. It does not abandon you when there is no one left to clap. Self-love is humble though not timid. It does not shrink to make others comfortable, but it does not inflate to make itself appear grand. It does not need to announce itself. It is quiet as breath, steady as heartbeat, unyielding as the tide. Self-love allows you to walk into a room without demanding eyes turn, because you are not defined by who notices you. Self-love allows you to rest your head at night without replaying the day's performances, because you are not living for applause. You are living for peace. Ego will have you believe that to be loved, you must be flawless. It will keep you polishing your mask until the reflection blinds you. But self-love whispers that your scars are not shame, they are survival. Your flaws are not failures, they are fingerprints of humanity. Ego feeds on perfection, starving you with its impossible standards. Self-love nourishes you with acceptance, saying, you are worthy, not because you are perfect, but because you are you. You see, ego builds walls. It stands behind them, shouting down at the world, afraid that if it opens the gate, someone might see the cracks in its armor. Self-love builds bridges. It reaches across divides, extending hand and heart, not because it fears being unseen, but because it delights in connection. Ego isolates even in a crowded room. Self-love connects even in solitude. There is a danger in mistaking ego for love of self, for ego may bring momentary power, but it cannot bring lasting peace. Ego may attract attention, but it cannot build intimacy. Ego may win battles, but it will lose the war for your soul. Self-love may not always look glamorous, but it is steady. It is the river that carves valleys, the root that anchors trees, the quiet force that sustains life when storms rage. When you walk in ego, you demand others bend to you. When you walk in self-love, you no longer need to bend or be bent, you stand in balance. Ego fears being wrong, so it argues endlessly, refusing to release its grip. Self-love has no fear of correction, for it knows that learning does not diminish worth. It knows that growth is not proof of weakness but evidence of strength. And oh, how the ego clings to image. It polishes, it poses, it rehearses. But image is fragile. It can shatter with a rumor, a mistake, a single moment of imperfection. Self-love does not concern itself with image. It is anchored in identity. Identity is not shattered by whispers. It is not undone by failure. It is rooted in the truth that who you are is not dependent on what others see. Some say that self-love is selfish, but what they call selfishness is often simply boundaries. What they call arrogance is often simply dignity. To love yourself does not mean you disregard others. To love yourself means you treat yourself with the same care, compassion, and honor that you would extend to another. Ego seeks to dominate relationships. It wants control, power, superiority. Self-love seeks to nurture relationships. It wants honesty, reciprocity, respect. Ego says, I must be above you. Self-love says, I stand beside you. You will notice the difference in how each responds to rejection. Ego crumbles when it is ignored. It lashes out, it demands attention, it grows bitter. Self-love, when faced with rejection, feels the sting, yes, but it does not collapse. It understands that rejection does not diminish its worth. It understands that not every table is meant for you to sit at, and not every voice is meant to call your name. Ego asks, why don't they love me? Self-love asks, do I still love myself despite this? And when failure comes, and it will, for failure visits us all, ego hides. It blames, it makes excuses, it refuses to face itself. Ego cannot bear the weight of imperfection. But self-love greets failure as teacher. It bends, but does not break. It listens, it learns, it grows. Failure to ego is the end, failure to self-love is a beginning. Let us speak of success as well, for here, too, the paths diverge. Ego uses success as proof of superiority. It hoards recognition, fearing that to share the light would dim its own. Self-love uses success as confirmation of effort, as celebration of growth. It shares freely, knowing that joy multiplies when divided. Ego seeks success to silence its insecurities. Self-love welcomes success because it reflects the truth it already knew, that you are capable, that you are enough, that you are worthy of the fruits of your labor. Ego says, look at me. Self-love says, look within me. Ego thrives on external, but self-love flourishes in internal. And in the stillness of night, when the world is quiet, ego trembles, because without the noise of validation it feels empty. Self-love rests, because even in silence it is whole. It is important to understand this difference, for life will test you. The world will tempt you to feed ego, because ego is easy to measure. It is tangible, countable, photographable. But what is easy to measure is not always worth measuring. Self-love is often invisible to the eye but undeniable to the spirit. You cannot always display it, but you can always feel it. It is in the peace that settles over you when you stop performing. It is in the relief of breathing without proving. It is in the joy of living without competing. Ego will tell you that worth is fragile, that it must be defended. Self-love will show you that worth is eternal, that it simply exists. Ego says, earn your value. Self-love says, you were born with it. Ego says, do more, have more, be more. Self-love says, you are already enough. And the truth is this: you cannot fully love others until you distinguish between these voices. For ego disguises itself as confidence, and in its disguise it can wound those closest to you. But self-love, when practiced, overflows. It pours into others not from emptiness but from fullness. Ego demands to be loved. Self-love chooses to love. Ego takes, self-love gives. Ego consumes, self-love creates. So, when you rise in the morning, ask yourself, am I moving today from ego or from love? Let your words be guided not by the hunger to be heard, but by the desire to speak truth. Let your actions be guided not by the need to be seen, but by the power of authenticity. Let your steps be steady, not hurried by the chase for validation, but anchored in the knowing that you are enough without it. The difference between self-love and ego is the difference between freedom and chains. Ego binds you, tying your worth to every opinion, every judgment, every outcome. Self-love frees you, anchoring your worth in something unshakable, untouchable, eternal. And when you walk in that freedom, you will know peace that cannot be bought, joy that cannot be stolen, love that cannot be broken. Ego will often disguise itself in voices that sound convincing. It will say, protect yourself, do not let them see your weakness. It will whisper, if you do not shine brighter than them, you will be forgotten. It will insist, you must prove yourself to be worthy of love. These voices may sound like wisdom, but they are fear wrapped in pride. They are the echoes of wounds not yet healed. Ego thrives in the silence of unresolved pain. But self-love is not afraid of being seen in wholeness. Self-love says, let them see me broken, for even in my brokenness I am worthy. It says, let them see my light, for even if it is dim, it is still mine. Self-love never asks you to prove, it asks you only to be. The most dangerous trick of ego is that it will make you believe it is protecting you. It will make you think that to armor yourself with pride is to be safe. But what is safety if it costs you your peace? What is safety if it demands that you never show your true face? A life built on ego is a prison dressed as a fortress. The walls may look strong, but inside the soul withers. Self-love does not build prisons. It builds sanctuaries. It gives you the courage to open the doors, to invite others in, to say, I am not afraid for you to see me as I am. For true strength is not in the mask you wear, but in the freedom to remove it. Ego shouts when silence would suffice. It interrupts, it dominates, it commands. But when you listen closely, its voice trembles. It is loud because it fears being unheard. Self-love is not afraid of silence. It speaks when it chooses, and when it does, its words carry weight. For self-love is not trying to fill a void, it speaks from fullness. You can tell the difference when someone walks into a room. Ego enters with a demand, notice me. Self-love enters with a presence. I am here. One takes space, the other shares space. In relationships, the line between ego and self-love becomes especially important. Ego will tell you that you must always win the argument, that to compromise is to lose power. Ego will tell you that to forgive is to weaken yourself. But self-love knows that true power lies not in victory but in harmony. Self-love can forgive because it has no fear of losing worth. Forgiveness to ego feels like surrender. Forgiveness to self-love feels like freedom. Ego clings tightly, fearing abandonment. Self-love holds gently, knowing that what is meant for you cannot be stolen. Children learn quickly from the examples set before them. If they see ego parading as confidence, they may learn to build walls instead of bridges. But when they witness self-love in action, they learn that dignity and humility can live together. They learn that boundaries are not cruelty but care. They learn that to love oneself is not to place oneself above others, but to walk beside them without diminishing their own light. This is why practicing self-love is not just for yourself, but for the generations that watch, that listen, that follow. Ego feeds on comparison. It is forever scanning the horizon, measuring worth against another's shadow. Am I taller? Am I richer? Am I more loved? Ego thrives on being more, never on being enough. But comparison is a thief that robs you of joy. There will always be someone ahead of you on the path, and someone behind. To measure yourself against them is to lose sight of your own journey. Self-love does not compare, it celebrates. It says, "They are shining and so am I, their light does not dim mine." There is a serenity that comes with self-love. It is a serenity that ego can never touch, because ego thrives on chaos. Ego needs constant drama to prove itself alive. It needs conflict to sharpen its claws. But serenity is strength of another kind. It is the stillness of the mountain that does not need to move to prove its power. It is the calm of the ocean that holds storms within it, and yet remains vast and unbroken. Self-love gives you that serenity. It teaches you to be at peace with yourself even when the world is restless. And when success comes, as it will, for effort bears fruit, ego wants to hoard it. It says, "This is mine. I alone have done this. Do not take the credit from me." Ego fears that sharing will diminish its shine. But self-love knows that joy is multiplied when it is shared. It knows that gratitude is richer than greed. When you succeed with self-love, you lift others as you rise. You do not guard your light with jealousy, you extend it with generosity. And in giving, your light only grows brighter. Even in solitude, ego and self-love reveal themselves differently. Ego dreads solitude because it has no audience. It grows restless, it grows anxious, it reaches outward in desperation. But self-love flourishes in solitude. It is in the quiet that you hear your own soul most clearly. It is in the stillness that you realize your worth does not depend on who is watching, but on who you are becoming. Solitude for ego is loneliness. Solitude for self-love is sanctuary. There are moments in life when the path you walk will demand you choose between ego and self-love. Perhaps you are overlooked when you expected recognition. Ego will scream, "Fight for attention." Self-love will whisper, "Rest in your truth." Perhaps someone criticizes you unjustly. Ego will insist, "Prove them wrong at any cost." Self-love will remind you, "Their words cannot undo who you are." Perhaps you stumble and the world laughs. Ego will hide in shame. Self-love will rise in grace. And the truth is, each of us has both within us. Each of us hears the tug of ego and the call of self-love. There is no shame in recognizing the voice of ego. It is human to long for validation, to crave recognition, to seek control. But wisdom lies in knowing which voice to follow. Every day is a choice to live enslaved by ego's hunger, or to live liberated by love's abundance. The difference is not small. It is the difference between a life lived chasing and a life lived resting. Between a heart that is never satisfied and a soul that is always nourished. Between a presence that takes and a presence that gives. Between noise that fades and truth that endures. So I say to you, choose love over ego again and again, until it becomes the very rhythm of your life. For ego will build walls that keep you trapped, but love will build bridges that carry you forward. Ego will drain you, always asking for more, while love will fill you, reminding you that you are already enough. When you walk with self-love, you walk with dignity that does not bow to arrogance, and with humility that does not shrink in fear. You become a force of grace in a world desperate for gentleness, a light that does not blind but guides. Let your life testify that self-love is not selfishness. It is strength, it is freedom, it is truth. And when you live from that truth, you not only change your own life, you change every life that dares to meet your eyes.